Welcome, everyone. It's the Mike Tech Show, show number 897. For tonight's show, I'm going to talk about the formats that I'm going to entertain for the shows, really the different sections. I have browser tips, then QuickBooks Desktop, no more. Man, there's going to be, I have so many clients, they're going to be so unhappy. And I got some real opinions on that. And then I have some little stories from the trenches, a whole bunch of little stuff I've been working on. And then a little stack of email. So some follow-ups to some questions and some other stuff. So before we kick off doing everything here, the sections that I find myself always doing, and now I'm making it a little more formal in my notes. Everybody seems to enjoy the content that I have, and I'm going to break it down into, first, kick things off, personal information. You know, maybe stuff about the Phillies, or maybe a follow-up on my health or something going on, but more personal. And I know some people don't like that, but a lot of people do. Then tips. And I got a nice section of tips. Relevant tech news, like about that QuickBooks. Then stories from the trenches. Man, I got a big stack of little stories with a couple links. And then listener email. So that's the 5 sections. We got personal, then we got tips, relevant tech news, stories from the trenches, listener email. Now, of course, there are shows where I have maybe a specific topic that I want to deep dive, and, you know, that'll take precedence over everything else. So here's the personal thing. So, and some administrative. Next week, no show. I got some visitors coming down, and just don't have time next week to do a show. Today marks the day, and this is a big news item up in Philadelphia. The Phillies spring training trucks were packed and left this afternoon from Philadelphia, making their way down here to Clearwater, and they will be here on Sunday. Boy, that takes a long time for those trucks. Anyway, can't wait until spring training starts. And then, real quick, if you didn't catch the Grammys, there's a must-watch that you got to check out on YouTube. It's Fast Car by Tracy Chapman and Luke Combs. Now, Luke Combs, this past year, covered that song and did a great job. But to have him and Tracy Chapman singing that as a duet with an orchestra, and it sounded amazing. It is an absolute must-watch. So now, on to the tips. And I am going to log into my test system in Pennsylvania right now. And I am going to bring up Google Tips. So something that I started doing was, how can I speed up a browser? And this one, I'm kind of going off the notes here. If you open up, well, this is Firefox. If you open up Google Chrome, which we shall do right now. So we're going to open up Chrome, and then we're going to go to settings. We're going to go to settings. So you just click the 3 little dots and then go to settings. And then what you want to do is go to performance and memory saver. When on, Chrome frees up memory from inactive tabs. This gives active tabs. Keep that off. Don't turn it on. Always keep sites active. Don't do that. Here we go. Preload pages. Take it off. Don't preload pages. So these are things when on, Chrome frees up memory. No, we do want to turn that on. I'm sorry. We do want to free up memory. but we don't want to preload pages. And this is a quickie speeding up Chrome. The first link is literally a support article from Google, which is close unused tabs. That's obvious. Configure your preload settings. This is, again, things to try. Now, I am a big Firefox user, so once I did a couple things with Chrome, I said, well, let's keep going. So the next link that's going to be in the show notes is Firefox performance settings. And I'll tell you, I keep staying with Firefox, just like Evernote. They keep disappointing me, and I keep staying with them, and I don't know why. I guess I'm so familiar and so used to Firefox. I am really embracing Chrome and Vivaldi and even Brave. I am really making an effort. It's very hard, but Firefox, there's so many memory leaks and problems that they keep fixing and fixing and fixing. So it doesn't hurt to go over more performance tips. So I have a link to an article there. Then another link, which is 10 tips. And this is from Yellow Brick. And this is just some obvious things. Keep your browser up to date always, because there's so many different issues. There's so many different versions. Firefox keeps updating, so keep it up to date. Clear your browsing data. This I don't do enough, and I think that's what I got to do more often, like every week or at least once a month. Optimize your browser settings. Manage extensions. Absolutely get rid of old extensions that you're not using. So always go into extensions. Look at that. Enable tracking protection. Tracking protections built in. Things that I use, maybe not on this test system, but just things like the Malwarebytes has an add-in for all the browsers. So you definitely want to check that. Use a content blocker. There's lots of good ones. AdBlock Plus, I think I have here. AdBlock. Disable plugins that you're not using. And consider a refresh or reinstallation. Make sure you got your bookmarks backed up. And then they have some takeaways here. So lots of good things. And, some things to try for, tips to keep your browser fresh, keep it running, keep it, to the peak of performance. So wanted to go over that for some tips. Now, relevant tech news. This is horrible. QuickBooks Desktop. Intuit is going to stop selling new QuickBooks Desktop to U.S. subscribers, trying to force everybody to online. Here's the problem with this. I have clients that there are some functions that they have not duplicated, especially involving inventory, that will prevent my clients from moving to the cloud. How can they stop the desktop version if they haven't 100% duplicated it in the cloud? So I have clients that uses Right Networks because they can host it, but it's the desktop version. And they securely set up access to where you can remote in. It's sort of an encrypted terminal server. So it's RDP, but it's over an encrypted VPN tunnel. I don't know how Intuit's going to get away with this. There's going to be an explosion of people just literally companies going out of their minds. When I have clients that are going to. So I have the article where QuickBooks, describes that they're not going to do this anymore, and I think it's a mistake. we've seen mistakes before, right? Coke decided to change the formula, then had to come back with classic Coke, So I think they got to be careful. There's now, you have Sage and you have some other packages that I think you're going to see emerge who can take on, and as long as they can import the QuickBooks data, this is an opportunity where QuickBooks has a stranglehold on that market. And I don't think the software is that great anyway, but it's like one of the only games in town. You know what? Now is a chance for competition there. And I think you're going to see something happen, and that it's going to, I think the revenue's going to they're going to take a hit into it as people look for alternatives where now they're not looking. Well, this is, I think, going to force it. That's my opinion there. All right. So, stories from the trenches. That was relevant tech news that I think is important to share with everybody. Stories from the trenches. I have been just going out of my mind on little calls this week and last week, and even today. Just tons and tons of these little things where they're 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there. So first, I want to report last weekend, I finalized 2 of the post-email migration problems I was able to take care of. The rules for one user. Remember I said I really messed up. I did not back up the rules. Well, of course, the CFO had 36 rules. Now, I could see the rules, and this is another shame on SureWeb. Their implementation of Outlook Web Access, I could see the rules, but I can't export them. So on one screen, I logged into his web. This was the only way I could get the rules. And then I was on his current profile for Outlook on another screen, and I manually was able to build 22 of the rules. And it was actually easier than it sounds. So I was able to just go through, because a lot of them were a certain type of email, and I would just go to the folder that he was moving them to, and I would right click on that message and then build the rule. He's happy. The other 14 were really like anti-spam as they came in, so they were not as important. But I was able to nail the key rules that would unclog his inbox from a lot of notifications, where he had them move into proper folders for when he needed that. So that was one. And then the other one was, for some reason, the January mail. This was one of the people who had an excessive amount. Their OST file was beyond the limit. So I set up a profile for that user to hit SureWeb as an IMAP, because I couldn't connect via Exchange. You can't do a new profile because AutoDiscover is not right. And you can't manually configure it with SureWeb. That's another problem, but we're not going to go there. So now I have IMAP, and I'm able to control. I only want the last couple months because I'm only looking for January. And once that's done syncing, I'm able to export the January email to a PST. Now I log in remotely. I transfer the PST to his local system and attach it. Got an email Monday. He's happy. So that was basically, I'm describing my Sunday morning, last weekend. I tell you, I tried to have time off, but that was not happening. So I was dead this week, but my son was busy, so I had to maintain the phones. So here we go. Had a meeting with an auditor of a big client of one of my clients, where their security assessment is forcing me to write 13 different security policies. So I've started them out. I have multiple Zoom calls next week with the president of the company where her and I are working out, responsible for everything. And we're going to do those policies before the follow-up. We have 60 days, to be compliant. So we're gonna knock them out. I have my sample policies, and I'm just going to go through them and, just bang away and get that done and remediate all of the gaps. And I think there's 27 things that we got to address. And some of them really didn't apply. And we're going to push back a little more and for non-applicable. Anyway, here we go. Yesterday, client called and wanted to know where can they go to learn Microsoft Word and Adobe Acrobat. And the first thing that always pops into my mind is lynda.com. And I know they were bought by LinkedIn. And I'm going to have that link in the show notes. It's not cheap, $20 a month. But boy, they have everything. And I remember subscribing that when it was real inexpensive, and it was like, very cheap. It was less than half price. And I did purchase that for a year once a few years ago. And I took some of those courses and really learned a lot, especially when it came to Adobe. Some of the tricks and tips in Adobe, learning the full Adobe Acrobat, that was really good. There are like 22,000 courses. So I recommend do the trial month, sign up. And this is just linkedin.com/learning. And you could take a look at the different plans. So you could, they offer, plans for teams, plans for, so check that out. Got 2 calls where I had to repair Office. And, it's hit and miss when you do that quick repair for Microsoft Office. Well, I got lucky on both of them, and I was able to do repairs. So now I'm doing that. I have a tip of something I learned today, and this was Windows 11, and I am going to now share my screen with this, and there's the LinkedIn Learning. Here we go. How to set the default browser in Outlook. I totally forgot about this. Just because you have your default browser set to maybe Chrome or Firefox, Outlook on an update changed the default browser when you open a hyperlink. And I got a call from a client this morning, and she said, Mike, I use Firefox for everything, but now everything I click on in email, it opens up Edge. And I looked at her default browsers for Windows 11, and it's all Firefox. Well, if you go in Outlook 365, if you go File, and then Options, then Advanced, and then scroll down to File and Browser Preferences, you're going to see Open Hyperlinks from Outlook in, and you just click down, and you either have Edge or default browser. So it was set to Edge. We clicked default browser, saved, clicked OK, restarted Outlook, and voila, it just started working. So that was very, very cool. And I was very, very happy at that. So that was, I think, a tip that you would want to know, that now if someone has that issue, you're going to be able to go to it. Printer problems. I hate working on printer problems. And there were a couple of them today. Some of them I left for my son. As a matter of fact, I got to follow up with him tomorrow morning to see how he did with with 2 of the printer problems. I'm still battling one, which it's it's slow printing, and I've checked the cues. I stop the spool or I deleted the printer's folder under the spool under Windows directory system 32 spool printers. Deleted that, had them turn off the printer, turn it back on. We rebooted the computer. I've redid the driver. It still can take up to 15-20 minutes on a USB connected printer to print a job. It's driving me crazy, and they are very remote. This is a client I can't visit, or I can't send my son to visit. So I have my work cut out for me, and I got to try to take a look at that. So anyway, I hate printer problems, which I know a lot of you hate them too. Password manager. That was a question that came up this week. Someone said, Mike, do you recommend to manage all your passwords across multiple devices, multiple operating systems? Well, I'm like, I live in RoboForm. So I know there's a lot out there, but I'll tell you what, that's some feedback I wouldn't mind. What do you use? I am all in and committed to RoboForm. I love it. And I even have my USB fingerprint set for that on my PCs, and then the fingerprint key for my master password set on my MacBook. So my MacBook Pro. Anyway, I love RoboForm and use it all the time. Okay, it's listener email time. So let's get to all the emails, and we have quite a bit. Let's see. Let's start with Tim Elliott in the chat. He uses Bitwarden. Thank you. Oh, Frank sent an email, and I got this from someone else. Someone has probably sent you this by now, but Google moved Cast to a lower level on the browser menu, and that's where you have to go click and then save and share. So thank you for following up, Frank. And let's see. Have an article from Kate. The FBI will inform owners of the affected routers or their providers if the owner's contact information is not available. This is from the Malwarebytes blog on the FBI finding compromised routers. So that's a good read, and I don't need to read that to you. The link is going to be in the show notes. Thank you, Kate, for that. I really appreciate that, because that one got by me. I missed that one. Here, this is interesting, and this is from Bill, and he sent me, and I'm going to connect to it right now. He sent me a link on become a Windows 11 master with these 70 plus keyboard shortcuts. So take a look at this. I'll tell you, some of these shortcuts I have committed to memory. My favorite shortcut is the Windows key and the letter M, because that minimizes everything. And you probably never use the Windows keyboard, but the Windows key a lot, but I really, really like doing that. And there's Windows M, minimize all windows. Then there's Windows key L, that'll lock the screen. So that's very cool. And here you go, lock your computer, Windows key L. Here's all of the Windows and third-party apps where you got A, to the Action Center, Windows S, open Cortana in text mode. No, thank you. I don't need Cortana. And always Windows R, that's to open up the run window. Anyway, check that out, Bill. Thank you so much for that, for the link, for the tips. I really appreciate that. And let's keep going. We have Mick. And Mick his previous email was regarding providing a password for implementing BitLocker on Windows 11 at startup. And he says, I was the listener from show 890. So, yes, Mick, I remember that. He continues here, I hope you and your listeners can help me with my current challenge. It's relating to creating a shared folder on one PC in a workgroup network on Windows 11 computers. This is for a small retirement village network of one manager, one admin, one nurse computer, with all the computers Windows 11 Pro and being in the workgroup. Yep, just decided to move into this village recently. Okay, hope everything's going well. He continues, the need is for 4 files which are created and maintained on the admin computer to be visible and accessible, but not able to be modified by the other 2 computers. And I've allowed a number of instructions on I've followed a number of instructions on how to share a folder with no success. The instructions have always been around following the GUI type steps like network and internet settings page. Yes, advanced network settings, turn on file and print sharing, private networks, enable SMB on Windows 11 and the like. Are you aware, or can any of your other podcast listeners suggest any combination of PowerShell, VBS scripts? No, CMD type statements. No, we're going to make this very easy, I hope, for you, Mick. So let's finish his email, and have been a long-time listener and thoroughly enjoying listening to your show. Still trying to come to grips and understand the content from your last show, the SPF, DKIM, and DMARC, with my other email addresses being on mailcan.com, fastmail.com, which is registered in my state of Victoria in Australia. You probably don't have to worry. Just like if you're a current Gmail user, Gmail takes care of the DKIM and the DMARC. You don't have to worry about that. Or if you're an Outlook.com user, Microsoft takes care of it. Where it becomes a problem is if you are hosting mail where you bought the hosting of a hosted email service for your personal domain. And now does the hosted email provider provide access to DKIM and being able to put a DMARC entry? That's the big problem. SureWeb doesn't do that. So that was a big issue because I have a lot of clients in there, and that's still a nightmare I'm living through. Let's get back to your sharing. You have to create, and nobody can change the passwords for their account. So let's say I have computer A with user Z. User Z has to have a password. You now got to go to computer B and you got to create a local account. That's the same exact name and the same exact password. Now you have to give the permissions in the security tab for that directory, and you can then assign, read, write, whatever you want to those users. But it has to be the user that they are logged in on the other machines. So if I have a machine that I'm sharing out to 5 different people, I got to have 5 local accounts, and the passwords have to match the account that they're logging into on the other computer. I hope that makes sense. If anybody else has some tips for Mick, please send them my way, MikeTechShow@gmail.com. So let's get to, I believe, the last email. And he says, Mike, you must have comments turned off on YouTube. I didn't think I did, but I have to take a look at that for show 896. I left an answer to your question about knowledge base 5034441 update, and it did not stay on the page. So here's what it said. Search for the following, and I like this. Search for "Let's Fix Windows 10 After Failed Windows Update" and in YouTube, and you're going to get Brit09, and the last part of the video explains how to use the free version of the Mini Tool Partition Wizard app to fix that knowledge base article update problem. It is easy to use and works great. I am going to search that and link that YouTube video in the show notes. And let's see what, and I also got I forget the person who last week sent me that email. I got a reply with your comments, Michael. So thank you. I really appreciate that. And that's what's so great about this, with all the tremendous feedback. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. Hey, remember, if to support the show, there's a donation tab where you can go right to PayPal and do a continuous donation or a one-time donation. I really appreciate the support. Keep the lights on, help with expenses. I really appreciate that. Also, check out the YouTube videos, Michael Smith MTS, and click subscribe. It's the only way I'm going to be able to grow the subscribers, so I can take advantage of advertising on YouTube. That is it. Remember, send me any feedback or email, miketechshow@gmail.com. No show next week. I'll see you back on Thursday, February the 22nd. I'll be live if everything goes well. And everybody have a great week, and happy Valentine's Day next week. Don't forget your significant others, your loved ones. Take care of them on Valentine's Day, and bye-bye.